Right, mate. Marcus Nicholas.
Yeah.
So, I know we've been speaking for a while now, trying to get this done. Obviously, you're a very busy man, so I appreciate you, taking the time out of your day to come and talk to me.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate you asking me on.
Yeah. I guess today, more for me is I want to try and get behind you, who you are as a person, and sort of the philosophy is what you've built here is incredible, and I commend you for that. So yeah, I mean, we'll start at the beginning. Obviously, you're a Scouser,
Yeah.
Evertonian.
A blue, yeah.
We'll start from when you were a young boy, mate, and go from there, really.
My story in regards to how I got involved with drugs, drug dealing, did start from a young age.
Yeah.
Quite an insecure kid. Now, as we were talking before, when you sort of look back, reflect back, childhood and your time in addiction, very insecure, low self-worth, daddy issues, never feeling good enough. Used to follow my sister around. I think my mum used to have to go to the school, wasn't making friends, so didn't really fit. Looking back now, I was like, never really felt like I fitted in, belonged. Quite an insecure kid. And then when I got to about 13, I got me sort of self-involved with the crowd who were a couple of years older. And that time that they was drinking, which was like drinking alcohol on the streets, and that's sort of where my journey with drinking drugs began. Started drinking on the streets. Even from that, you heard a lot of the time with addicts, they notice sort of when they start drinking, it was always to excess, always excessive. A lot of the time as well, that can be, when you think back about that, it can be like insecurity, trying to sort of fit in and play the big man. So that also played a factor, I think, for me, wanting to belong and fit in so much with this older crowd. I was sort of drinking to excessive. That went on for a couple of years. And then cannabis got introduced. And there was a friend of mine that was like best friends, and his brother was sort of into drug dealing, and we sort of started getting cannabis from him and selling that in school. So I sort of got involved in dealing drugs from a very young age. Again, the insecurities in me and the low self-worth and stuff, even as a kid, it was like selling drugs, not really sort of thinking about the consequences of what you're getting into. So I'm drinking and I'm selling drugs from quite a young age. Again, that carried on for quite a few years. But when I got to about, I think I was 14, 15, my health really took a turn for the worst. I had real bad problems with my stomach. As a kid, that was going on for quite a while, but wasn't really telling anyone what was going on. When I was going to the toilet, I was losing blood. And what it was is I had Crohn's disease, and that put me in a really bad way. But put me in hospital. And obviously during that time, I'm really sick, so I'm not drinking and I'm not taking drugs. But I remember sort of while, when I was in the hospital, so at this point I'm about 15. And I remember them saying, you won't be able to drink alcohol because it'll inflame the problem. So sort of when I was around 16, I had that because of how sick I was. It was like, well, I can't drink now. But then someone offered me ecstasy. And as a kid, you're like, well, they didn't say don't take ecstasy. Like the doctors were going to say to a 15-year-old, don't drink and don't take ecstasy tablets either. And I took one. And my stomach was fine. And I remember thinking, I had a brilliant night. I was around a lot of people at that time because you're a kid and they're all drinking and they're going out and they're drinking. And again, I went back to sort of feeling like I don't fit in. Yeah. Everyone's drinking, I can't drink. And I went back to just feeling like I don't fit in here. And then I got back in with the crowd and then was offered ecstasy. And then, funny enough, was in the 051. I was saying to Lee, it's your fault. And then that's where the Class A's come in when I was about 16, 17. And then again, like I did when I was younger with the alcohol and the cannabis, then the selling drugs then started going to, well, I'll start selling ecstasy tablets when I'm out in clubs. Yeah. Just to pay for the night. That's how it initially started. I'll just sell a couple just to sort of pay for my night out. And that quickly sort of progressed from selling a couple to selling a couple of hundred in the end. 18, probably 17, 18 at the time, and I was just so out of my depth in the end, looking back now, getting quite large quantities of drugs and passing them on to people, and just thinking, I was a kid, caught up in this world that I just definitely didn't belong in, but my ego loved it. And it's social sort of society these days, and the conditioning that young kids were in this mindset of, they all want to be the gangster or the hard case or the drug dealer. It's like, that's what I remember being a kid. Like I was suffered extreme bullying growing up. So I was bullied for many years. So I always sort of felt scared and fearful. And the type of people I sort of looked up to at that time were the drug dealers and the doormen and the hard cases type of things. So it's just bizarre when I look back now and you think like that was the type of person. It's like, I want to be one of them. Probably because I think that they were the type of person I was scared of. So I was one of them. I'd feel safe. And I was just caught up in this lifestyle of drinking, using, selling drugs. That's how things, but I remember from a very young age, say about 19, it went, the cocaine got introduced. The pattern followed. As soon as I started taking cocaine, started selling that. Yeah. Then I was drinking, using, taking cocaine, driving around, using all the time, dropping it off at parties, using there. I had my daughter when I was 19 in May. She was born in July. And at that point, I'd never had a job. Even when I was in school, I was just going to be a drug dealer. Yeah. I was selling drugs in school. I wanted to be that type of person. And my ambition in life was to leave school and be a drug dealer, and that's what I started doing. I had my daughter when I was 19. I'd never had a job. Never had a job before. That was the sort I always look back at that time as the way I was progressing, the drinking and the drug using and the lifestyle of the things I was getting myself involved in, giving large quantities of drugs to people and they wasn't paying, and I was owing quite large quantities of money because I was a kid. Yeah. I was getting bumped. Yeah. Then I was owing all kinds of money to these other people who you definitely don't want to be owing money to, and they're telling me they're going to shoot me, and I was just like...
Especially involved. Not round here.
Oh no, definitely not round here. Yeah. And as we were saying before about society, it's like this is the way the world's going, and certainly the city is they're the type of people that I was looking up to. And it just led me into such a dark place. But when I had my daughter, I genuinely believed at that point that saved my life at that point. The way I was going, the things I was getting involved into. I was a kid, I was out my depth. And that made me, I stopped selling drugs. I carried on taking them. Yeah. But I stopped selling them and I got a job. And for them, the couple of years after that, there was a bit of stability in my life. The girl I was with at the time, she's an absolute angel. It's my sister's best mate, and she's just a really lovely, lovely human being. And I had my daughter, and we lived together. I stopped selling drugs. I had a job. For that period of time, there was a bit of normality and stability in my life. But the drug taking continued, and it wasn't not long after that my drug addiction, which I'd already developed at that stage, ruined all of that. Yeah. I remember now looking back now, because certainly the cocaine abuse was really sort of getting out of hand. And the girl I was with, she was like, she didn't take cocaine, so she was like, you need to stop. Yeah. What I know now, what I didn't understand at the time, is that she was making it difficult for my addiction to use drugs. So my addiction was in my head going, you don't want to be with her anyway. She's trying to control you. Didn't really want to be with her anyway, and blah, blah, blah. And the stories that I was telling myself, basically what it was is, in the end, I remember leaving. I basically chose cocaine over me. I could feel the emotions there saying that. I chose cocaine over me family. Yeah. Me partner and me daughter, and I walked away. Because I remember looking back now, I remember driving away from the house crying. Like, absolutely felt heartbroken. That was the actual real me who didn't want to leave. But my addiction chose the drug. Because now I understand that addictions don't understand the part of the brain where your addiction is. It doesn't understand consequences. The other part of... It's like how many times we've been in a situation where you only sort of regret it after you've drank and used.
100%.
It's I can't believe I've done this. Why have I done this again? Yeah. Because it's just an insatiable appetite for drinking drugs. And if you don't understand addiction and you're listening to these thoughts and your addiction is making your decisions for you, it will make horrendous decisions the choices that you were making in addiction, if you don't understand addiction and you were engaging in these thoughts, you will make absolutely horrendous choices on the back of these thoughts, and the outcomes of that will be horrendous, and your life will be horrendous. But you only ever regret it afterwards. And I remember sort of walking away, driving away, and just heartbroken, but chose the drug over my family. And that's when things really, because at that point there was no sort of purpose there. I didn't have my family, didn't have my partner, didn't have my house. I went back to my mum's, back to the spare room in my mum's house. The drug dealing started again, and the drink and drug abuse really sort of went into overdrive, because it was what's the fucking point now? Yeah. You're on your own.
Everything's fucked anyway, so we may as well carry on.
Yeah, it's it's already that bad, then you might as well carry on, and then...
Well, you're going to make some money out of this anyway. If you do this and do that, you're going to make a few quid, and you can carry on, and your life will probably improve. That's the way I used to think about it. Yeah. Where I live, we'd all get involved a little bit in selling drugs, just to make a little bit of money and get free drugs.
That's it.
And your addictive voice would say, carry on. I was the same. Spare room in my nana's house, ended up in the spare room. And just carry on doing what you're doing. At least you'll be making a few quid. Yeah. When you wouldn't make any money, because you'd chin it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You end up owing money.
Yeah.
And then when I was in my mum's, then that sort of went there. Again, your addiction will convince you, we'll go there, and then you get your own place, and then you'll set up. I was there for years.
Yeah.
And I remember going to my mum's, and they were selling drugs for a period of time, but that was becoming quite on top. So I stopped that. And again, what you just said, my addiction got to the point where I wasn't selling it no more. I was just sitting in my mum's spare room taking it all.
Yeah.
So it went from wasn't making any money, wasn't selling it, was just taking it.
Yeah.
So then that stopped. And then there was now I look back when I think back to the way my life was and the way I was behaving, is this drug dealer was a bit of a persona, not a bit of a persona.
Avatar.
The persona of the bullied, scared, insecure kid who I never wanted to be. The drug dealer was this persona that I created. And the horrible thing about it is you then do get respect from people. The people who you're actually scared of and that you actually wanted respect for, it feeds into it. Because you're then the drug dealer.
Or what you identify as respect at that time, what you think is respect.
Yeah.
When it's not, is it?
A lot of it's fear, and a lot of it's people just using you.
100%.
It's bullshit.
100%.
Absolutely. And the worst thing about it is when you do this, when you're hiding behind these masks and you're creating this false identity to try and fit in, no one actually likes you anyway, because they don't even know you. Yeah. They like who you're pretending to be, or they're scared of who you're pretending to be. And I went sort of turn from being bullied to being the bully, which is just open and honest, which is the emotions when I say these things is the type of person I ended up. It's just not who I am as a person, but...
I can identify with that. I mean, everything you've just said there about your childhood is almost identical to mine, really. Grew up with a single mum. Dad wasn't around much, and you sort of latch on to, it's the survival of the fittest, you know, whoever the big, strong guys are at the time where you are, or if you're older lads who, you know, they're known as being the hard lad, you try and get in with them, just for that social acceptance, should we say.
There's a bit of safety, isn't it? Yeah. Or like being in the pack.
Yeah, wolf pack mentality.
Wolf pack mentality. And that, again, if you've had maybe a troubled childhood or experience some bullying, you are stuck in survival mode.
100%.
And it's like human beings, one of the biggest desires is to belong, to be accepted. Going back to survival, if you go back to the survival drives, is you're safer in the pack.
I did pretty much what you did there. I was bullied a lot as a young lad. And then when I got to 16, 17, 18, I created this avatar of who I should be in society. Not who I wanted to be. I still am probably, a very insecure, quiet. I just like sitting in my room watching films, gangster films or whatever, films about gladiator, Roman film, all that type of stuff. And I just sort of became this boisterous, on the gear, taking gear at 17, 18, thinking I could fight when I couldn't. And I created this avatar of who Lee should be. 6'5", 6'6", on the gear, people think I'm hard, that sort of thing. And all it did was ruin my fucking life, mate. I lived that life through the whole of my 20s. Again, I get emotional talking about it. it's difficult to accept that, even though I do believe I'm a good father, that all through my 20s was just, we just sort of rolled for 10 years, just drifting through life, going to work, taking drugs on the weekend.
Goes like a blur, doesn't it?
Honestly, like that. Honestly,
1 year just into the next, into the next.
Well, my son's 17 now, and I haven't lived with him for 4 years, and he lives with me again now. But it's like, where's this little boy gone? You know, now there's a 6'3" lad sleeping in my garage.
Yeah.
Where's my son? You know, who's this young man? And it's terrifying. It's a really nice feeling, but it's also terrifying. Like, you've lost a lot of time there doing things that you didn't really want to do in the first place. And I used to say I failed as a parent, and I sort of enlarged the word failed. And a friend of mine said, well, why have you failed? I said, oh, because I've spent a lot of my time in addiction. I was an arsehole. I wasn't a nice person. And he said, well, you're 37 years old. You haven't failed. And it was only then that I started using these sort of positive affirmations with myself and affirming, you know, what I've done over the last 3 years is beautiful. So, you know, growth, all these things, all these different emotions that I'm feeling, vulnerability, being able to have conversations with people that I don't know about who I really am. And in turn, it gets me emotional. My lips quivering.
I can hear it.
Yeah.
That's that vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I would never sit there and have these type of conversations with people. But
And in turn, it's made me believe that I'm a fucking fantastic father. Not that weak-minded, negative person that I perceived to reality that I was. You know, that avatar is gone.
Everything you're saying is just so relatable.
Yeah.
But it's how we work with people in the program. It's like both of me and you. It's like hurt people.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people who were hardest to love needed the most, as that saying goes. It was years ago, me and you, our behaviours changed from a much deeper level of insecurity, trauma, whatever we've been through. So your behaviours then changed to maybe try and mask over these things.
Yeah.
Then maybe you develop an addiction.
Yeah.
You have no understanding of what's going on cognitively, but you have an addiction and it starts making you choices. You're designed biologically to follow instructions from your thoughts, from your midbrain, from your reward center. That's how we're designed. You don't ever question it. Why would you?
Yeah.
But then you hijack the system, put an addiction in there. That then starts making your choices. Your behaviours have to change for an addiction to survive. Addiction can't survive in this world I live in now.
Yeah.
Where I am now, it doesn't. Your behaviours have to change for an addiction to survive. And on the back of that, your behaviours determine your personality. A lot of these things that we done growing up, as you say, when we changed, they're coming from a bit of a deeper level, masking over these insecurities, no vulnerability, condition that you can't open up. How can you talk about your emotions?
Yeah.
Not really understanding anything. Now, I deal with it. We work with hundreds of people, and this is a very sort of common conversation. And people really struggle with forgiveness, like forgiving themselves. Like, how can I forgive myself for everything I've been through? But you've just nodded in agreement because both of us would probably have same with me. I didn't see my son for 2 years. Absolutely ruined my relationship. Again, we're going to be able to cry in the pair of us here. Again, ruined the relationship with both of my kids, and I really struggled with forgiveness. Now, this is how I look at it. When I didn't know better, I'm going to keep punishing myself for poor choices I make when I didn't know better. Didn't have the awareness, I didn't have the understanding or the maturity, emotionally immature. The difference now is I know better. I understand, I have awareness. And I will never repeat those things ever again. So I deserve forgiveness. Yeah. I need to forgive myself because otherwise I'm going to keep myself emotionally and physically, psychologically stuck in things I've done in the past. You're going to harbour this guilt forever. How can you move on? You've got to let go. But the difference is how I say to people, if you're planning on, now that you are aware of these things and you have an opportunity to maybe do this level of work on yourself and improve, but you're planning on carrying on doing them same things, then you don't deserve forgiveness. Yeah. You have to have absolute accountability for all the shit that you've done. Don't play the victim. Don't blame no one. Understand why you were like that. Forgive yourself, but you have to change. Yeah. Too many, it's like words without actions, manipulation. You've been in addiction for years, certainly like me. Yeah. We were speaking before about the lies, but the manipulation, my behaviours would upset people and there'd be consequences to my actions. I would be manipulating people for their forgiveness because I had an agenda. I needed things back from them, but I had absolutely no intentions in changing. I was just manipulating because I needed things back, But that, in then, as a byproduct of that, ruins your self-esteem because you know that you're not living by your values, and this constant cycle of just destroying yourself.
Yeah.
Then you hate yourself to the point where your addiction goes, what's the point?
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't like you, everyone leaves you. You can't, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror anymore because I couldn't stand the person looking back at me.
Same.
And your addiction goes, fuck it, what's the point? You might as well carry on.
Yeah.
And it's such a dark place to be in.
I was exactly the same, mate. Over the last, I'd say 2.5, 3 years ago, I still hated myself.
Yeah.
And it was only then when I started, meeting new people, experiencing new conversations, and being able to bring these emotions out. And I've said it before, but I went to this thing called Master Your Mind in Wigan, and it was like this mindfulness experience. And we did meditation and mindfulness. And I went back and had a meeting and a conversation with me 12-year-old self. And I burst out crying in front of 400 people. And it was just this experience of like hugging myself and saying, I'll look after you.
It's the inner child stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
I've got you. And it was only then when I realised that when we in our brains, we go back and experience a traumatic time in our life, or we just think about it in our heads, we experience it. So say, for instance, I had an experience at 15, 17, whatever. I'd go back and experience that moment in time as a 15-year-old, not as a 37-year-old. And it was only when I realised that I'm no longer that child, and I've got all these opportunities and these tools to grow and become a better person, that I learned to forgive myself, and I learned to not hate myself.
That's a big one.
And it was powerful. And it's even now, mate, it's like I get chills up my spine because I know it's real. I know there's no bullshit in this.
Yeah.
I know what I've done over the last 2 years is working. And I listened to your podcast where you said, because I thought before Christmas that I was healed. I thought, you're going to beat it here. And then I remember saying to me, Mrs., when we go on holiday, I might have a little drink on holiday, but not, until then, I'm not going to. And then I heard you say, you can't. That is your addictive voice saying, I'll just sit in the background, and then when you're on holiday, I'm fucking coming for you.
Well, my last ever relapse, 4 or 5 years ago, holiday.
Was it?
Holiday. Mine and Lee's biggest issue over the years in recovery, I used to be able to stop. I think this is when I talk about the way we work at Break Free. It's like, have you had enough? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, you need to commit to never drinking or taking a drug ever again.
Yeah.
And people don't like that, but that's their perception of how they want to do their recovery, and that's fine. But there's other ways to do it. I didn't want to live in this one day at a time, and relapsing's part of it, and I own this wagon that I'm going to fucking keep falling off for the rest of my life. I'm like, no, I don't want to live like that. But I could stop. I could stop when I was in services for periods of time. I stopped for 12 months once. Don't get me wrong, the whole 12 months was horrific. I was white knuckling because at the very start, what you just said about the alcohol, I was someone who I've used drugs on their own and I've drank on its own, but predominantly I drank and I took drugs together. Yeah. It's a different feeling. It's more of a euphoric state. It's a different drug. It's cocaethylene. If you put alcohol and cocaine in the bloodstream, it combines into a different drug, which releases more dopamine. So the anticipation to reward, there's a bigger part of the brain that's allocated to anticipating the reward than the reward itself. And it's conditioning. It's like pathways in your brain. My brain knows, and it did know, my addiction fucking knows, that for 20 years or more, whenever I put alcohol into the system, the association then to cocaine, so whenever I was drinking, if I didn't use drugs, it's not enough. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean, we see with the drinking and they can never quench the thirst. Yeah. It was just like that. It was the anticipation to the reward I was going to get. Yeah. Without the cocaine in the mix, it was never enough. And I relapsed hundreds of times over the years. Every time I had to drink in my hand. And I did get away with, I just have a couple of drinks on holiday. Sometimes I'd be somewhere where you couldn't get drugs, or maybe my addiction would go, well, go on, see, you had a drink there. You didn't have a line, you'd be fine. Yeah. Have another drink, drink more. And the problem with that is, imagine it like that bottle. My brain is anticipating that bottle's full with dopamine from cocaine and alcohol. If I don't put the cocaine in, the chemical structure of the alcohol will release more GABA, but it won't release enough dopamine to satisfy the addiction. So say, for example, you only fill the bottle half up. What people then tend to do, what I would do is I'd drink more and I'd drink more. Because biologically, I'm trying to get the same high, but without the drug. And then I would drink myself into absolute oblivion to the point where I went from a cocaine addict to an alcoholic as well, and a cocaine addict. And then you will drink yourself into an absolute oblivion where you have no concept of what's going on.
Yeah.
Someone will offer you drugs and you'll take them.
Yeah, without even asking.
You won't even know. And then what you'll know is you'll sort of come around in some random place, fucking 2 days later, back in the same situation.
Yeah.
And I lived in that cycle for 15 years.
Same.
Stopping, starting. Even with like other things, cannabis, steroids, but certainly stuff like opiates, tramadols, codeine, zopiclones.
Oh.
Because of my health conditions, I'm manipulating doctors to give me these prescription drugs. But the thing is, the addiction is convincing me. Again, that salesman in my head, the doctors give you them.
Must be all right.
Must be all right.
Yeah.
But the chemicals within this pill
Yeah.
that the doctors give me, tramadols and codeines and diazepams and zopiclones, they're releasing the exact same thing that I was getting from the alcohol, but just in a packet off a doctor. And then what had happened is that I'd take one of them, then I'd take two of them, then I'd take three at once. And then before you know it, they're just like little stepping stones back to the cocaine and the alcohol. And when I got onto in the end, it started with pre-workout, Red Bulls, ciggies. I don't smoke. Pre-workout, Red Bull, ciggies. And then what had happened is because it's like my addiction asking. It's like having a lion and feeding it a chicken nugget once a day. You're not good. It's just enough to maybe keep it alive. Well, in the end, this fucking thing will eat you alive.
Yeah.
My addiction's asking for stuff, and I'm giving it a ciggy, and then I'm giving it a tramadol, and then I'm giving not enough to satisfy, but just enough to keep me in the battle. And then what had happened is I wouldn't be able to sleep because me busy mind, busy body, my addiction, fucking chaos in my head all the time. So then it'd be, I can't sleep. I'll have a joint. Then I'd start on the cannabis would come back in. Then it'd be, I'll have it. And then before you know it, it's got everything back. That took me a long time for this to process. The only way I got myself into this position where I don't lie, I do not lie no more, open and honest. But you already said that at the start. I'll talk to you about anything. I'll tell you anything that you want to know. The only way I got myself into this position where I don't battle at all. I don't battle with taking drink or drugs no more. I get the thoughts. Yeah. But maybe the stuff we'll touch on is how I've reconditioned my brain. But the only way I got myself into this position was in the end, one day I went, right, that's fucking it. I'm done with everything. I'll never drink. I'll never take a drug. I'll never take cannabis. I'll never take any of those things. Any of those, they're all gone. And then since that day, I've never took none of them. And it was a level of freedom. That's why it's called break free. Because I used to be able to stop drinking and taking drugs all the time, but I was never free. There's a massive, massive difference between not drinking and taking drugs and being free from an addiction. You cannot stop drinking and taking drugs, but the torment stays. You know, that's what you want to get rid of, getting rid of the torment for me.
And I guess that brings us on to what is break free? Right, mate. How did you find it?
Good.
Yeah.
Conversation flowed.
Yeah, I think so. This part, mate, we'll get straight into it. What break free is, you know, how you started it, and what is your philosophy behind what you do and how you help people break addiction. So, I think I first went into recovery when I was about 23, into service. Sorry, I knew I had a problem from quite a young age, as we were speaking about before, from the drug taker, drug dealer, steroid abuser, then doorman, violence, womanizing, just losing me kids, just absolute chaos for years. And then got to the point, I think I remember my mum finding me. I was like unconscious in my car, sort of in the neighbour's garden type of thing. And she was like, and I love my mum, she's an absolute angel. The stuff that I put her through was horrific. And I said to her, look, okay, I'll stop. And the thing about anyone who's ever been around an addict, why they're so believable, is because they actually believe their own bullshit. Yeah. Like I've seen that this is what I was doing to my mum. After you use
the consequences, and you're like, I'll stop. Look, I promise you I'll stop. Believing it at that point, when my addiction's being fed and it's leaving me alone, and I'm left with the absolute mess that I've created, and like, I promise you I'll stop now, I won't do it again. Doing it again. So in the end, I agreed. So we went to the GP. They referred me into service, and I think I was about 23. And I remember just a mix of emotions, just shame, embarrassment, fear. I mean, riddled in fear. Obviously, and that was my addiction then, because it's like a survival drive. If I come over now and cut your oxygen off, a part of your brain will panic. You saying to someone who's got an addiction, right, okay, you need to stop drinking and taking drugs, and you've been doing it for such a long time. You think that you'll just say it and mean it. This is why I don't chase this rock bottom theory. Because rock bottom, for me, I used to think I was at rock bottom, and I was nowhere near. There's another trapdoor. I'd just keep going down. And in the end, I was like, I hadn't seen my kids. I hadn't seen my son for 2 years. I was bankrupt. Partner had left. Lost my job. Car was going. Hung myself. Suicide. And then I still used. 2 days later. Where was rock bottom for me after that point? That's why there's like 13, 14 people, I think, now we know who've died. Yeah.
It's the same where we live in North Wales. There's a lot of people, especially men at the moment, who are taking their own lives for multiple reasons. Yeah. A good close friend of the family, last Christmas, I think, went to hospital, really struggling, mental health issues. He said, I need help. Give him a phone number, sent him home, went home, and put a knife through his own throat, killed himself. The rock bottom theory for me as well, they say you've got to hit rock bottom to sort of build yourself back up. And I've said in the past, there's a lot of people who hit rock bottom and take their own lives. So
the rock bottom can be, if you chase this rock bottom theory, that may well be a destination you can't or don't come back from. Yeah. Because again, we could sit in this room now and then compare stories. Yeah. And then yours might be worse than mine. So my addiction will go, oh, I'm not at rock bottom then, because that must be rock bottom. I'll wait until I get to that point. Yeah. If your life has got to a point where drinking and using is having a detrimental effect, you've said that you're going to stop or cut down, and you can't. Yeah. You don't. And it's ruining your life. Stop. The addiction will use this rock bottom theory, but you've still got your kids, you're still going on holiday. Everyone does it. You're not that bad. It'll chase this. And I think that's where this fear come in. And I went into service quite young, but it took me 15 years after that point until I eventually stopped. And I've been in, I had the season ticket for every one of them. I was in all the services. Sometimes, for me taking accountability, I just wasn't putting the work in. Yeah. I hadn't had enough. I was there for my mum. I was also always holding on to this pipe dream of moderation that but I'm only young. If you stop using drugs and drink for 12 months, you'll definitely be okay to have a drink again in 12 months. Remember I said to you before, I'd done 12 months and it was miserable because from the very start, I'd committed to drinking again. Yeah. It's like someone putting your dinner in front of you and you can't eat it. It was just this constant anticipation of hunger, waiting till the day I could drink again. And I actually done it. It was miserable. I had no life. I wasn't comfortable, riddled in fear, didn't trust myself, wouldn't go nowhere, work home, that was it. Going to meetings. And then on the day of the 12 months, drank that day, went off the rails for about 2 years, and then tried to kill myself. And I went round in those, but then there was times when I had enough. I really was putting 100%, and I was really trying to stop. I really was. But the information that I was getting from the services I was in didn't resonate with me. I wasn't connecting with it. I'm not a religious person, and it was hard for me to just change my beliefs that, right, okay, I believe in something and then I was getting told, well, there's no hope for you then. You have to do this. And my addiction was like, well, there's no hope for you. Yeah. That's where the suicide come in the end. Yeah. Decades of trying to stop, failing, letting people down, hating yourself, actually getting to periods of time where you actually believe, I've smashed this now, that old smashed it mentality, and then doing it again. It was like I lost hope. Yeah. And that for a human being, it's a dangerous place, because if you lose hope, you'll give up. So it wasn't even like I wanted to die, but it was like living's worse.
Yeah. Didn't know how to live.
Yeah, I thought in the end it was I can't stay like this. And I tried.
My biggest moment, well, I'd say biggest moment, worst moment, was that where I just sat there in the room one night when I lived with my dad, sat in the dark on my own, no telly on, nothing, just beer, drugs, ciggies on my phone. And I'd sit there for 2 or 3 days at a time on my own in the dark. And I just thought to myself, I've nothing to live for here. Not that I didn't want to die. It's not that I wanted to die. Just I didn't feel as though I had anything to live
Living
for.
seems worse.
Yeah.
When you're what you feel like you're trapped in an addiction, and you've told yourself, as I say, like, I'm done. I'm never going to do this again. And you carry on doing it. You're losing hope and feeling like. I remember the worst moment for me wasn't actually the day I was drinking and using and the suicide attempt where I hung myself. That weren't the worst day was when I used about 3 days later. And then that realisation of, fuck, I can't get out of this. I thought that the suicide would eventually be the thing that just put this to an end. And then it didn't die.
Yeah.
And then I used again. And then that realisation, I remember, it's like you just said, sitting in the dark, like, fuck, I can't get out of this. I'm stuck like this. Like that. All I ever have to do, so we'll talk about sort of the tools, sort of the way we work. That's the only thing I get from drinking drugs. That moment, that feeling. That's why I'll never drink or take a drug ever again. But I went through every service trying. My addiction was quite aggressive, bullyish, high level manipulation, victim mentality. And if I couldn't manipulate you, I'd bully you, shout it, don't you tell me, and the counsellors would sort of leave me alone. Or my family were paying for me to, in the end, when I've gone round all the services, and then my mum was paying drug specialists, and I'd go and sit and have one-to-ones with them, and I was manipulating them into saying, oh, don't beat yourself up, it's understandable you have the occasional blowout. I mean, look what you've been through. You can't say that to someone who's got an addiction. It's understandable you use now and again. It's like, fucking sound, I'll use now then. Yeah. I could manipulate. And a lot of these, we were talking before about beliefs and behaviours, and these things are conditioned within myself over the years. If you don't change them, things about your character, your personality, the things that you've conditioned in yourself that actually aided the survival of your addiction, you'll struggle to stop. Because when life gets difficult, you'll give up or you'll play the victim. Yeah. So in the end, there was one counsellor, Chris Farrell, his name is. What a fella. The way he worked, he's the one who got me onto rational recovery.
Oh, right, okay.
There was a concept. It's the only thing for me that in the end, I'm a bit of a critical thinker. Not why I'm not religious. I've got too many questions, not enough answers. I'll look into things. The rational recovery, the AVRT, you in it, the two parts of the brain, that made sense. I thought, right, this makes sense to me. But I still had that book for 10 years and I still carried on using it.
Is that the book that you were on about in your podcast? Oh, right, okay.
The rational recovery book.
Yeah.
That made sense, and I used to be able to get periods of time not using. But that still weren't enough for me. And it's still not enough. Again, I'm not saying everyone's the same, but I've been around a lot of people who was in the similar services, who were reading the same book, and we could all get a period of time. The concept made sense. But it weren't enough still. So in the end, what I'd done is I was like, I'd had enough. I thought, right, okay, I'm going to give this 100%. I'm really going to give this 100%. And I obsessed. I basically put the same amount of effort into recovery as I did my addiction used to into addiction. I had to match it for effort. And I thought, I'm going to give this 100%. But instead of me constantly searching for answers that I'm not finding, I'm going to maybe look into this myself. And I sort of obsessed over the science behind addiction, the reward center, the dopamine, the serotonin, how these things work, parts of the brain. And for me, it was a bit like if something can go that way, you can go that way. Instead of going somewhere and I go to certain counters or places and they diagnose me with stuff and tell me what the problem is. It's like, I'm very aware of how fucked up I am. What's the solution? What do I do about it? So we sort of looked into that and then developed tools that help me cognitively when my addiction talks, recognize that. But I expanded on that concept. So it's like addressing situations, putting boundaries in places with people. I like stoicism. So your mindset of stop playing the victim, take accountability. If you can't take accountability for the situation you're in, how are you going to get yourself out of it? Because it was always everyone else's fault.
Yeah.
You know, like I use this analogy, you know, like when you look at it, you watch crime documentaries.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say like the police have got like the big corkboard and they've got photos and the string.
Everywhere.
And it's all the suspects.
Spaghetti junction.
Yeah. That's what my life used to be like, where, oh, it's the police, it's me mental health, it's doctors, it's me physical health, it's trauma, it's abuse, it's
like a blame board.
Blame board.
Yeah.
But if you follow the string back,
all leads to you.
All leads to me in the middle, my addiction.
Yeah.
I either was directly to blame for everything or it was indirectly. I always played my part. Where when I stopped blaming everyone and stopped playing the victim and just took full accountability for the situation I was in, that changed. So I sort of, in the end, done my recovery that way. And then I got myself abstinent that way without going to services. I've been in a lot of services and had a lot of help and a lot of advice. But in the end, it was doing it that way. Lockdown come, and the services stopped. And a lot of friends I was in, was in a service that was like 1 day at a time. And you need to keep going to your meetings.
Yeah.
Which can be a little bit like you're conditioning yourself that you're empowering the service. Like you need your meeting to not take drugs. And then once people lost the meetings, there was a lad I know who committed suicide and a couple of other people I know ended up in a really bad way. They relapsed and stuff. So I shared a video on social media just talking about like, well, this is sort of the way I do my recovery. And Lee Butler, my best mate, who we went through recovery together, who we set Break Free up with. But we never sort of set Break Free up.
So it just happened.
Yeah, we were just like sick of people struggling, and we were like, he was sharing videos. He's got a massive platform, and I started just sharing videos and offering to personal train people and talk to them about how I do recovery, how I was doing it, my concept, my perception of things, and things I'd tried and failed, and what I was doing, and it was working. What we were finding is that the information that we were giving people and the way we were doing it, it was working with people, and then. The only place you could go at the time was go for walks. No, it was still at the point where you couldn't go in and you couldn't have group gatherings and you couldn't go to gyms or you couldn't have meetings. So that's where the walk and talk started. Me and Lee used to do that walk, just me and him. So we were speaking to quite a few people just over messaging on Facebook and social media through the videos and said, well, should we ask them if they want to do a walk? And there were 6 people on the first walk. And what we were finding is the information that we were using to help with our recovery, this was working in other people.
Yeah.
And then it just gained momentum. It went from, I mean, there's like 150 people on them walks now.
Do you find that everybody's break free is different? Even though you're providing all the right tools, do you find that it'll be a certain moment or a trigger, something that you guys are doing that'll have that, just have that click in their head, and then they sort of grasp your concept and philosophy?
Yeah, it's what we call light bulb moments.
Yeah,
it's like if you've lived with an addiction, the torment, how many times, why do I keep doing this?
Yeah,
you ever ask yourself, I'm never going to do this again, and you're fucking adamant you're not going to do it again. You believe it. That's what I'm saying. That's why addicts are so believable, because you actually believe it in that moment. Because the mad thing about addiction is part of your brain is lying to the other part and you believe it. This part where your addiction is, and you won't go mad, you won't do it again, blah, blah, blah. And you're believing it. Well, then once your addiction's been fed and you're left with the consequences, you're like, I'm never doing this again. And the why do I, and that's where the helplessness of why do I keep doing this? And everyone's going, look at the state of you. I remember my mum sitting on my bed going to me, what happened to you? You used to be a lovely lad. You've turned into someone who you hate. And I was like, but I don't know how to stop it. I don't know why I'm doing it.
You don't even see it either, do you?
No. So when people come into our program and we have a meeting and we'll get into someone's head and we'll give them we'll answer the why. Yeah. This is why you're doing it. Yeah. Give them the awareness, the separation, and it's fucking hell, that makes sense. And then what we do is then we give them the tools. Yeah. We give them 24-hour support. And then what happens is it's cognitively reframing the addiction thoughts. Because your brain is as intelligent as it is. It's when you develop an addiction, it's being lied to. You've hijacked the system. Your brain sees drink and drugs as a reward because of the ridiculous amount of dopamine that you get from it. And every time you do anything that keeps you alive, sex, food, water, keeping yourself warm, going to the toilet, every time you do something that keeps you alive, your brain exchange with you a little bit of dopamine. The exchange. Okay, you do something from a survival point of view, your brain gives you dopamine. So it's very hard for your brain to understand that. How can this not be a reward when we get so much dopamine from it? So your brain is seeing drink and drugs as a rewarding experience because it releases dopamine, the pleasure hormone. So what we have to do is you have to recondition your brain that drink and drugs is a trauma, it's misery, it's depression, it's suicide. So every time I hear addiction talks, it's getting these thoughts and reconditioning them. So if human beings function on desire, if you only see drink and drugs as suicide, remember you were talking about then about sitting in your dad's in the dark for 3 days, and remember how you felt when like that?
Yeah.
Now when you think about that moment, what you focus on, you feel.
Yeah.
So if I focus on me wanting to kill myself every time my addiction talks, and I do that enough, then in the end I will only see drink and drugs as misery. Human beings won't chase misery by design.
Yeah.
So it's like if
that hedonistic aspect, isn't it? We chase hedonism.
Yeah. As you think about, we've just said then, like how many times when I'm never going to do it again. But if you think back to how it tricked you into it, holidays, you'd be able to have a couple of drinks, and it's like Picasso in your mind, painting this masterpiece of sunsets and like you're on Baywatch and cocktails by the beach, and it creates this illusion. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, one piece at a time. You'd able to have a drink. Girls and sunsets and hotels and nice nights and nice meals. And the more and more pieces of the puzzle it gets in, the nicer the picture looks. And if you look at it for long enough, it's like, do that. That looks lovely. We don't get that. So if my addiction can keep convincing me that that's what I'm going to get, that's the desirable part. As soon as my addiction talks, it's like, pff, and then I take it into a different pathway. I actually show it the truth.
Yeah.
I show it all the misery and chaos and depression and absolute horror that it causes me. You'll never use.
That's all I see now is misery, sadness, depression, all the bad things I've ever done in my life. We were talking about it when we were on the way here. Like, if I think of drugs now, I just think of pure paranoia, weirdness, and just all the weird, mad things that I've ever done. I don't look at it and go, oh, could do with going out Friday night, might have a drink. Don't see any happiness in it anymore. I just see all the negative aspects of it. And then there's like a level, it's like you're only aware of what you're aware of. Yeah.
As we said before, why am I doing this? I don't understand it. Think about how manipulative we were. Well, I'll speak to myself. I was.
Oh, I was.
You was. I'm not throwing you under the bus with me. Okay, both of us together.
Think of how much we were both pricks, us two.
Yeah. That level of manipulation was my addiction having control of me, and I'm manipulating everyone around me so my addiction can get fed. High level manipulation, high level lying. Now, when you then go, right, I'm never going to drink or take a drug again, the manipulation doesn't stop. The manipulation is then on you. My addiction then is trying to convince me to drink and take drugs. So it goes from, it stops just talking about drink and drugs. It's like, once it's just used to go and drink, and then I give it drugs, give it. Like a child, go on to sweet and you just keep feeding it. When you then stop that, the manipulation starts, why don't you get back with your, it was always mine, like, why don't you get back with your ex? Funny enough, it was this ex who I used to drink and take drugs with. You'd be all right to go back on the doors now. You wouldn't take drugs no more. You know, you need a couple of extra quid, you know, go on an holiday soon. But there's no mention there of drinking drugs. Yeah. But it was using money. It was using situations. And it was actually convincing me that I wouldn't use to get me into the environment. So if you don't understand addiction, you don't have a level of awareness. The amount of times my addiction convinced me to orchestrate a relapse and get me into certain places. And then once I was there in the environment, then it'd come in with, oh, fuck it, might just have one of them now while you're here. Yeah. So it's that level of awareness and understanding and control. And it's the way we work in Break Free. It's like, I say it to everyone, like this program is not for the faint-hearted. It's what I like to call elite recovery athletes. It's if you're coming to us, there's no hiding place. Yeah. In our meetings, you don't get, this sounds quite egotistical, but I used to be able to sit in meetings and just sit there with me head down, and if I didn't want to talk, I didn't have to. And then I'd leave and I'd use. So if we're in a meeting, you don't have that option, right? Okay, you're going to have a conversation. You're going to have to get vulnerable. You're going to have to open up. Your addiction is here in your head. I can see it. Let's break it down. And then you'll have them light bulb moments. You'll actually get rid of the anticipation cognitively without them struggling and battling. So we say to everyone, look, if you're coming into this program, have you had enough?
Yeah.
Have you had enough? Not for now. Not till Ibiza. Not till Christmas. Not till you can have a few here and then. Have you had enough of the absolute misery you've been living in? And are you ready to commit to never again?
Yeah.
Now, without commitment, you'll never start. Without discipline, you'll never finish. Don't get me wrong. You have to commit to never again. That's when the fun starts. Because that doesn't mean that you just come in, we go, right, you need to stop, and then they stop, and then that's it. You have to commit to never drinking or taking a drug ever again because of the hell it's caused you. And then what we do is we then assist them 24 hours a day, every single day. We reply to between 50, 60,000 messages per month. We have gym classes, meetings, unlimited one-to-ones, every single moment. Emotions.
Yeah.
Like when people are in an emotional state, people lose rational control and relapse on the back of emotions all the time. Because when you just nodded along, probably how many times did we get bad news? Drink.
Loads.
Split up with someone, drink, bad day in work, drink, bad news, drink, use. You're weakening your own resilience. You're just not regulating any of your emotions, and you're actually strengthening your addiction, weakening your resilience. And then every time then you stop drinking and taking drugs and you get emotional, your addiction will automatically come in, and people feel like, I can't cope.
I used to look for bad news, make bad news
create bad news, yeah, your own.
Just so then, if me missus ever said "fucking hell," I'd say it's I've had some bad news or whatever. Make it up.
The blame game,
yeah, or look for it a form of bad news that had nothing to do with me, almost. You know,
it's what my mum used to say to me. Is she used to say, I was the architect of my own chaos.
Same, exactly the same.
And it was what you find, like you've just said, when you've been in addiction for years, you're living in chaos, constant chaos and problems and drama. And then all people want is peace of mind, but it's so unfamiliar. You've not experienced it. Maybe if you've had a troubled childhood, you've never had this state of calmness. Yeah. And people fight for peace of mind, and then you give it to them, and they're like,
"What's this?
What the fuck do we do that?"
Yeah.
And they struggle to stay in the calmness. They'll look to create chaos, as you say, create problems for your addiction and to drink and use on the back of. Yeah. So the way we work is that it's lifetime commitment. It's 24-hour support. We give you all the tools. It's CBT. It's my own take on CBT and NLP. It's like what you just said then. What I said. What we're talking about. I can't cope. Never say that. You're conditioning your own computer program of that you can't cope, and when life gets hard, you've conditioned yourself 100%. That you'll give up. Yeah. Or you can cope. It's difficult. Yeah. You can cope. The way we work is you've got to stop drinking and taking drugs. Yeah. Without that, nothing else matters. Yeah. You have to have the ability to understand addiction. It's like, for me, it's like the addiction in my head over the years created like an engine, and it was just, this thing was just revving, just driving, controlling my life. The tools and the techniques and everything that we teach, imagine it like stops the engine, but what was the fuel that was keeping it going? Because then that's all look at all this shit. Like, look at the traumas, the insecurities, look at the abuse, look at the problems you've caused, look at the wounds, look at the guilt, look at all the relationship problems, look at the shame, the embarrassment. And it's like all of these things that my addiction's actually been feeding off for years. Yeah. You then need to stop drinking and taking drugs, and then what was the fuel that was in the engine? You then need to start getting that out. Yeah. And then we give people a sustained period of time where they can hear their addiction, control it, get themselves where they're not battling with it. But then it's okay, let's look at this stuff now. Yeah. Let's look at all the other things that, as I say,
you're putting in, what you're going to start. Yeah.
Like maybe, as I say, like a lot of the time people have gone through a lot of bad things in their life that made them more susceptible to addiction. Made them, maybe that's why they were drinking and taking drugs. That's where it stemmed from. Yeah. But the things that maybe one should say, the things that your addiction used for why you ended up in addiction, once you're there and you've developed that, your addiction is using all of those things to keep you there. Does that make sense? Yeah, yeah. So then you need to stop drinking and taking drugs, and then you need to go back and do the work. Yeah. That's why we say, like, a deeper understanding of yourself. You need to understand your ego. You need to change your behaviours. You need to take unbelievable accountability, vulnerability. You can't be weak. No. There's weakness, you'll get bullied by life, by people, by your addiction. Vulnerability is a huge strength. Since I've started doing what I've been doing, mate, I've said vulnerability is the key to the growth that I'm experiencing now. Perfect. So I'm no way,
you know, you guys are years ahead of what anything that I'm doing mentally and emotionally. But the things I'm experiencing now, like the training I'm doing, I listen to a lot of stoicism, psychology. I'm reading psychology books. Somebody would have said to me 3 or 4 years ago, you'd be reading psychology before you go to bed. It's, shut up, you fucking knobhead. You know, you wouldn't dream of doing anything like that. But it's that vulnerability to accept that, look, these things have happened. The way I've dealt with them my whole life has given me nothing but pain, hurt, and suffering. Clearly that's not working. Let's try and understand those, my identity, you know.
Because it's your true, authentic self.
So like we said at the beginning, didn't we, that we built these avatars or these creations when we were 17, 18. It's about getting rid of that and going back to who you were and, like, you know, really understanding this is who I am. Yeah. These are my beliefs. Yeah. And for 20 odd years, that person's been in the back of my subconscious. And it's only in the last 3 or 4 months that he's learned to come back out again. And it's beautiful. I fucking love it. The emotions and, like, honestly, it's really, I feel powerful at the moment. Just like, mentally.
Purpose, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, when we were talking before about higher powers, and look, loads, millions of people that works for them. But like this, really investing in yourself, like finding purpose in things, developing, doing this level of work. Yeah. As we were both saying then, it's like, I'm very much like my mum. I always sort of you can seek the attention from the parent, you're not getting it the most. But I like helping people. But I was so insecure and so no self-worth that all of these things were suppressed, and now I'm the same. Yeah. Thirst for knowledge, learning, getting vulnerable, helping people.
Brilliant.
Understanding myself on a deeper level.
Do you feel the high that you're getting now is more than you've ever experienced from drug abuse? You
know what I experience now is all I got from drug abuse was momentary pleasure. What I feel I have now is happiness. I feel like happiness is sustainable. Pleasure is like instant gratification, like waves of pleasure.
Hedonism.
Now, hedonism. Now I feel like I have happiness because I can look at myself in the mirror. Yeah. I'm a good person. My intentions, my integrity. I live by my values. And I spend my life helping people now, not hating them no more.
Powerful. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, mate, and I think you sort of answered it there towards the end, is, do you believe that your addictive voice is the same as your unconscious voice?
It's like that Carl Jung thing, isn't it? Until you bring your unconscious conscious, it will control your life and call it fate. Now, if you think about it, but do you reckon you have about 60,000 thoughts a day? Yeah. But we're only conscious of 5%.
Yeah.
So the way we sort of doing the program is having the ability. Have you seen Bruce Almighty where he pulls the filing cabinet out? And
well, that's what our brain does. It distorts, deletes, and so, like, files away, doesn't it?
For me, it's like having the ability to bring the addiction from this, because a lot of these times you'll engage in thoughts. It's awareness. Yeah. So I'm bringing these thoughts from the subconscious into my conscious awareness, developing an awareness that between these 60,000 thoughts a day that are just swishing around my head every time my addiction comes in with. Yeah, there's an example. Driving, when I was going to the gym, and the gym I'm in has the football on in the gym. So I was driving, should I go to the gym or should I go and watch the match? Well, I could go to the gym and then I could maybe get something to eat, or I could watch it in the gym. No, why don't you go to the gym, train, watch it when you get home, and then I come in, get some drinks on the way home. Like subliminal. I just shot in. Now, without an awareness, in the past, I'd have latched onto that thought. So it's having the ability between all of my own thoughts about what I'm going to do when my addiction sees an opportunity, goes, why don't you get some drinks then? Yeah. And then it comes in with a little image of me drinking because the paired association to it. So for me, it's
separate and rarely would you...
The thought is coming from an added in survival drive.
One's trying to fight the other almost, isn't it? Or trying to break into your unconscious. I'm always trying to get into that.
So it's like saying, for example, when you can't determine, like, okay, I'm going to need a wee at whatever time, or I'm going to get hungry at whatever time. You're getting on with your day-to-day life, doing your podcast, doing whatever you're doing, driving home. You'll develop hungry and your midbrain will go, why don't you pull over to the service station and get something to eat? That thought will come up. So it's like a suggestion to the part of your brain that controls your arms, your legs, your voice, your common sense, your intelligence, your rational. It goes, get something to eat.
I
And then
agree.
you'll then, on the back of that suggestion, either engage in it and go, or won't. Now, that's what it's like with an appetite. Your addiction will be like, oh, you'll be able to have a drink on holiday. So I haven't drank and took a drug for years.
Yeah.
Every time I book a holiday,
Think about it.
it goes, oh, right, to have a drink now. No one would know.
I agree.
So
definitely.
it's for me, that's coming from subconscious.
Yeah.
It's coming from below, sort of from my midbrain, from my survival drives, and it comes up. And the torment is, that's like on at you constantly.
Yeah.
So you don't really realise how noisy it is until you sort of quieten it down. So that's how I would explain the addiction things. It's
I'd agree with that.
adds in, and then it's like that's making a suggestion, but without a level of awareness.
Yeah.
By separating yourself from it and constantly paying attention to this one specific, like a virus in the system, like getting my computer's like, your brain's like the best computer in the world.
It's having a Trojan horse chucked in the middle
you put
of
a virus in it,
Yeah.
it's not working correctly, so it's spotting the virus.
Next question, mate. What's the next 12 months hold for you?
Hopefully more of the same. Well, in fact, no, better, more.
Yeah.
When I first started Breakthrough, I had these unrealistic maybe expectations, and expectations can be the biggest cause of disappointment and pressure. Sort of can take away the joy in what you're doing when you're putting yourself to these unrelentless sort of expectations. So what I try and do now is do things with the right intentions and keep the standards as high as we can. And instead of chasing, it's like attracting success. Like opportunities are coming to us because our intentions are right with what we're doing. We want to help people, but we're giving people the absolute best support we can. On the back of that, we're getting results and we're getting noticed now, and we're getting opportunities with other things like prisons, schools, and stuff like that.
I definitely believe what you just said there, if you're doing it for the right reasons. Like, you know, if I was doing this podcast just for the simple fact that I wanted to make a fucking podcast and, you know, put myself out there, you'd get found out and I wouldn't enjoy it. And I wouldn't, you know, I'm doing it all for the right reasons, or my own, or what I believe are the right reasons.
Boss.
And, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here, I wouldn't know who you were otherwise. You know, me and you wouldn't be doing the things that we've been speaking about. And I'm doing it because I love it. I'm doing it because this journey that I'm on is I think it's key to the success that I want in life. And that's, you know, I chased hedonism all through my 20s. Nice house, nice car, for holidays, and getting in debt to go to fucking Vegas and things like that. And, you know, I asked myself this question now, I get messages now. I had a lad from Scotland phone me up and he was really emotional. I've watched one of your podcasts. It saved me. He was driving a wagon, he had to pull over. And he was like, I got really emotional, and it's helped me massively and powerful. And when I'm on my deathbed, what am I going to be more proud about? The fact that I spent 10 grand going to Vegas, or the fact that, you know, let's call it 10,000 people listen to my YouTube podcast, and in turn could have helped 20% of them. It's going to be that
difference to someone else's life. And it's like what you were saying then about like the intentions. If your intentions are attention, then you're in it for the wrong reason.
Agreed.
And the problem with that is why you're doing that. Where's that coming from? Insecurity, this constant pursuit of validation. It absolutely tortures people, changes their behaviours, and it'll always come crumbling down. When you're doing things with the right intentions, it will grow.
Your reality changes, doesn't it?
In the end, people get found out. I want to do things with the right intentions. I love helping people. I'm like the gratitude I have for my life, from the state that I was in to the fact that I get to spend my days helping people escape the misery I used to feel I was trapped in. Is just unbelievable. So I just want to keep the standards high, keep enjoying life. I love to enjoy life. I like to go on holiday. I like to spend time with kids, and also whatever adversity comes my way this year, which I'm sure they will, and I'll just live with the comfort instead of living in fear all the time like I used to. I don't live in fear no more that bad things are going to happen. I just live with the knowledge, knowing that if it does, I'll be okay.
One bit of feedback I'd give you is respond quicker with a fucking text message.
The amount of shit I get over that, mate, is unbelievable.
The amount of times I'd message, because we've been planning this for months, and I'd like, he's fucking online again here.
Yeah.
But obviously I know the work that you're doing, but
Yeah,
it's one of my biggest bugbears that when people don't reply.
I'll bear that in mind. I get that all the time, to be fair, so I need to work on that, definitely.
Last one, mate, is if you could sit round a dinner table with 4 people from history, alive or not, friends, family, and literally anyone, who would they be?
Anyone?
Anyone.
Me nan, me granddad.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. Carl Jung.
Nice.
Dixie Dean.
Yeah. Cool.
Now I'm thinking of hundreds of them. This, in my mind now, this is like the world's best dinner table. But
Who did you say? You said Jesus, didn't you, on yours? No, I can't remember myself. Somebody said Hitler.
Fucking hell. It was to psychoanalyse that person.
Yeah. You'd want to know what the fuck he was playing at, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that'd be an interesting party, though, to be fair.
That's it, mate. Job done.
Thanks very much.
Cool.
Appreciate it. Thank you.